Good morning, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Culture Bridge North East to our latest Secret World of Schools session. And thank you for coming along today to our session focusing on youth voice. So I'm Mel and I'm Programme Manager here at Culture Bridge North East. And for those of you that don't know us, just a little bit about us. We're Arts Council England's bridge organisation for the North East. And our mission is to connect the cultural and education sectors together so that children and young people have access to a really rich cultural education. So I'd now like to introduce and hand over to our facilitators for this morning. So just to show you who's in the room first of all. So I am here for the first part of the session for CBNE. And then we've also got Susie here today, who's our area manager for Durham, Tees Valley and South Tyneside. So she'll be taking over from me after I disappear. And we've got Abby here, who's our digital stage manager. You can see there. So if you're having any issues with Zoom at all, then you can send a message to Abby through the chat and she will use her wizardry to sort everything out for you. And then finally, I'm delighted to introduce our youth sector specialists for today. So we've got three great speakers from Youth Focus North East who will be leading the session. So we've got Laura Bush, who's the Director of Youth Work, Emma Abbott, who's lead youth worker, and we've got Megan Stratton, who's a university student on placement. She's studying youth work. So I'm going to hand over to them now, and I hope that you all have a great morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you for the introduction. So good morning, everybody. As I said, I'm Laura of Youth Focus North East, and we are a regional youth work charity. We've been around about 30 odd years now, and our aim is to improve the lives of young people. And we do that through direct delivery and workforce development, similar to workshops like yourselves. So today, what we're going to think about is importance of youth voice and how to incorporate into our service, and kind of give you some examples, and you will get a resource back at the end with more models and examples to go away and look at. So what you can expect from this morning is we're going to look at definitions of youth participation. We're going to think about the benefit and drivers of youth voice, look at different models, and in the pack you'll get afterwards there are more examples. Think about the principles, and then we're going to share some of our experience of youth voice, and we also have some quotes and some feedback from young people who are actually part of our youth board. So I'm going to hand over to Megan, who is going to start us off and do an icebreaker.
Hi, over to me now. So for this next activity, I'm just going to load up Menti. So if you haven't been on it, it's called menti.com. So if you go on to Menti, and then it'll ask you for a code, and I know that's going to get popped in the chat. Bear with me because my Facebook loaded instead of Menti. So I know it's been popped in the chat. So can everyone see that? So we're going to do a bit of almost like a bit of a barriers wall, but a virtual one. So on the screen, if you pop in the code 66412599, if you've got any problems, just give us a shout. And if once you're all on it, let us know. So what we're going to just do quickly is just do a bit of what are the barriers to youth participation and youth voice and that. So anything that you think might potentially be a barrier to involving young people in what you're doing either through like youth voice, through anything that you're doing, just pop it in just to give us a bit of an idea, sort of like anything that you think of. We won't know who's put what they've put in the chat on this, so it's all confidential.
If you're struggling with Menti, if you feel comfortable, just put in the chat, that's okay, and we can look at both.
I'll just give you a couple more minutes on this and then we'll have a quick look over.
Sorry, could you just say the code again? Because I've now got Menti, but
right. Yeah, it's 66412599. So yeah, so thank you for doing that. I've seen quite a few of you put around like the initial engagement as like where to go, things like that. So it's quite interesting to see like similar themes coming up. We've done this particular activity a few times now, and it's interesting to see certain key themes of things around like the travel, the gatekeeping, where to go type thing. So hopefully as we go through this presentation, you'll see like some ways that you can maybe like link with other organisations. So at the end there'll be a chance for you to sort of share contacts. You're more than welcome to get in touch with us to like see like who we're working with, and we'll have groups of young people that are more than willing to come and join some of your activities and things like that. So just drop us a message and we'll share all our details at the end. So yeah, just thanks for that. So hopefully as this goes on, you'll feel a bit more confident to do certain things. So yeah, so I'm just going to pass back over to Laura now.
Thanks, Emma. So what we're going to do is, thank you for doing that. So the barrier is kind of set the scene of potentially what might be in our way to start Youth Voice, and a lot of theme was the initial engagement, where are young people, which is, like Emma said, a common theme. So think about youth participation. There's many forms of it, which sometimes can confuse people, and it is a continuum. So you may be in one half and then you go to the other side. So for example, there's quite informal ways of doing youth participation, Youth Voice, and there's quite the very, very formal side. So on the screen, you can see some examples. So you might start off with individual complaints and feedback. So you might have, for example, a suggestion box in your office, your youth club, your centre, and it's about how you use that feedback. You ask for it, then use it and explain how you've used it. You might use survey and consultation, so that might be asking. That's quite a very one-way participation. So you're asking the young people a question, you're asking their opinion on something. You might do one-off event or an annual event potentially. And then we start looking a bit more where young people are more involved. So it's more of a two-way relationship. So participation projects. So you could maybe arts and media, if that's the group's more specialty, get them involved, getting them part of the planning. Get young people to lead on the activities, so train them up to be young trainers, young researchers, young evaluators, young inspectors, and that does take more time, but actually young people then develop the skills to be able to support you and to work with more young people. Another more formal approach is like youth forums, youth advisory boards, youth boards. Young people will be part of the grant making process, be part of the decision making, writing the questions. And then at the very end, you've got young people part of your governance, so they can sit on your board, and you could have them either sit on your board or have a shadow board. So at Youth Focus North East, we have 2 young people who are on our board of trustees. So what we do is we make a commitment, we have young people on our board, so they support us as the governance of our organisation. They provide that leadership to the senior management team and to everybody in the organisation. So it just shows us different ways we can do it. And it doesn't matter where you are on this scale, and you can go backwards and forwards, as long as you go on that scale and you're prepared to put that time in and that work with young people, you can go anywhere on this scale. So think about definitions, to kind of think about, there is a distinction between consultation and participation. That's sometimes where we get a little bit confused. So if you think about the previous slide, the very beginning of it that was more consultation, it's very one way. So consultation is usually your starting point. So the adults guide the decision-making process, and they tend to ask young people for their ideas, opinions, and then they feed that into their decision-making. So it's a bit more of a one-way relationship. Participation is that next step in that journey. So you're taking consultation further, involving young people. So they're part of the decision-making, they're not just forming it, and they're the ones part of making the changes from the outset. So they might write the process. And ensure that you have active participation in the planning, your delivery and evaluation that young people are part of. So an example would be consultation, where young people asked, should we do some funding around a particular topic? But actually participation would be the young people actually write the funding applications, they write the questions, and they're part of the grant panel, decide who gets the money. So that's just kind of show a little bit of a difference. And all this is underpinned by the values and principles of non-discrimination and equality. So it's about that equal relationship with young people and adults and practitioners. So I'm going to hand over to Megan, and we're going to have a little think about the historical context of youth participation to kind of set the scene a little bit.
So I'm just going to read statements around the historical context, and then it's going to be followed by a few dates. If you want to put in the chat box which date you think the statement replies to. So the first one is, the English Parliament witnessed one of the earliest recorded events of self-advocacy by children when a lively boy presented a petition on behalf of the children of this nation, protesting that intolerable grievance our youth lie under in the habitual cruelties of the school discipline on the nation. And then so it's 1669, 1755, 1890 and 1929. If you just want to put in the chat box which one you think it applies to. The answer is 1669. I'm just reading through the answers. I don't think anyone actually put 1669, did they? So then the next one is, next slide, Emma, thank you. The Cruelty Act, sometimes referred to as a Children's Charter, led the first legislative move for the right to speak out in decision making. It recognised a child as competent to give evidence against his or her oppressing parents, even when too young to understand the oath. And then your choices are 1792, 1890 or 1889, 1906 and 1918. If you just want to do the same. Okay, so
Yes.
the answer is 1889. You can see quite a few of the similar answers. And then the last one is the death of 13-year-old Dennis O'Neill at the hands of his foster parents caused public outcry. He had been systematically beaten and tortured and weighed just 4 stone at his death. The Children Act establishes a children's officer in each local authority to support the development of child-centred services. Many children's officers undertook participative work listening to children. And the options are for that one, 1948, 1959, 1978 and 1986. So for that one, the answer actually is 1948. From all of them, is there any of the dates that would have surprised anyone?
I think the first one, like how our early children were like, going for it, shouting for their voice to be heard.
Yeah, that one surprised me as well. Like, I mean, I've been doing this one, that was a new question for me, so it was quite interesting to see myself for that one. Was there any others? So we're just going to move on to some of the drivers of participation now. I should say that Positive for Youth isn't really around now, but we still like to refer to it because it was a nice piece of document that was there for us a few years back now. So yeah, so everyone's, I think you're probably all aware of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, but the big one is around Article 12, and it says that children's views must be considered and taken into account in all matters affecting them, subject to children's age and maturity. So it's really important to make sure that children, young people are given that option to have their voice heard around things that are important to them and about matters that impact their own lives. And yeah, so Positive for Youth was a document that was out a while back now, and it was around working with 13 to 19-year-olds, and it sort of brought all the different departments together with a single vision to help young people succeed. And that last bit at the bottom just is about this new and much stronger emphasis on giving young people a voice in public policy and local services. And that's something we're really keen to ensure still happens. We've had young people in the past get invited to things like the round tables around different thick conversations. One in particular was around domestic violence, and they were having their voices heard around how that was some of the publicity that was used and things like that. So some of the other drivers, we have a moral obligation. So for the children and young people to have the right to take part in matters that concern them, as we've already discussed. And it's for the social and political good. So it gives young people confidence, it gives them ability to express themselves. Young people grow to be active citizens within their community and then more across the region and stuff like that. And to enhance that understanding of issues affecting young people. At the end of the day, young people know what's important to them and what issues are affecting them. We might think certain things, so we might say, oh, drugs and alcohol is an issue for young people, or mental health is, where in actual fact it's through a thing called Make the Mark, which is run through BYC, so British Youth Council. Actual fact, poverty was quite high on their list of things that young people said was a priority for them. And I think that's probably come out particularly through COVID and the pandemic and things around having to be homeschooled and stuff like that. So the last bit on this, so yeah, so this is just some, and again, more drivers. So participation is for all citizens, and it's essential for healthy democratic society. So it's all of us getting involved in that. So yeah, this is focusing on people, but we all can be involved in different things through participation. So whether that's voting for your local elections or your general election, or just signing a petition to improve a service for particularly around someone's gender, for example. And then yeah, so improved, better targeted and more effective services and projects. Service can remain relevant and effective as they are based on young people's reality as opposed to professional perceptions. So things like our open access youth provision, for example, what is on offer for young people is relevant to them. So if they're telling us, no, we don't want to do that because it's rubbish, it's boring. So you're putting on arts and crafts every week, for example, and they're like, well, no, we don't want to do this. We want to learn about something else. Changing that and acting on what they're saying rather than just carrying on and being like, well, no, because that's what I've got planned for the next 6 weeks. And about skill development, it's that informal learning. So young people are learning a lot through what they're doing without even realising. So for some, they actually might thrive through that informal education as opposed to sitting in a school environment. So I'm just going to pass back over to Laura.
Thanks very much, Emma. That was just some examples of some of the drivers, some of the reasons why we at Youth Focus North East and other organisations really have incorporated youth voice into our work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. I'm going to do 10 minutes. So Abby, I know I've slightly changed that, but because we've got a bit of a smaller group, so I'm going to do. I'm still going to put you in. We've got 2, 4, 5. I'm going to put you in one breakout room just so you've got a chance to talk, because sometimes in this big forum it's hard to get your voice heard, and this is all about having our voice heard. I know it's young people, but we all need to have our voice heard. So we're going to put you in a breakout room. What I'd like to think about is the benefits of involving young people. So what could the benefits to be to your organisation, and what could the benefits be to yourself, as in your own role and your own work? So you have 10 minutes, and then what I'd like you to do is nominate 1 or 2 people in your group to feed back to myself, Emma and Megan around what you've spoke about. So just to clarify, I've got 10 minutes to talk about the benefits to involving young people, to yourself and to your organisation. Is that okay? Lovely. Okay, so we're going to magically whiz you away into breakout rooms, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. So who did you nominate to be your spokesperson to talk about the benefits?
That is me.
Thank you, Heather.
I'll try and summarise. Okay, so we sort of talked a bit about so the fact that the work will be more impactful, meaningful, purposeful. We talked a lot about sort of making sure that you know what your target group is, and so it's not that there's no homogenous young people's opinion or ideas, so that depending on what you are doing, like trying to work out who you should talk to. And we talked about the importance of making it the outcome, like being involved in the whole process, so like not sort of making it sort of tokenistic, and sort of being able to sort of the young people that you're consulting with or working with, seeing the impact of what they've fed into. The other benefits are more likely to sort of meet the needs of the young people who have been involved in designing it, and more likely to sort of promote it to their peers, and sort of like word of mouth and sort of self-referrals, and recommend it to their peers. Talked about the fact that if you talk to young people, it sort of cuts through all your sort of bureaucracy and sort of structural issues, and sort of just like, just do it like this. And then we had a quite deep discussion about like the sort of how do we reach people, like if it's at that like hyper local, because that's where where young people are. But then we talked about, like from my point of view, for example, like trying to work on a regional level. How do we get all those voices to feed into that, and talked about if we kind of sort of reach right down into those groups that are working hyper locally, and how that then feeds back up, and sort of the benefits of being able to do that, but the difficulties as well and challenges around that, and sort of people being protective over their very local groups and sort of not being used for sort of information. I think that was that. Anything else from our group? We'll cover all of that.
Feel free to jump in now. So I've got lots of thumbs up. So excellent, Heather. So that was like you had a really good conversation. Actually, thank you for that feedback, Heather. It was really detailed. So yeah, you're right. It's about that. It's more impactful. It's more meaningful. You can meet the needs of the young people, and you're right. They can cut through all that red tape. We're going, can't we do it this way? This makes much more sense. By the time we follow all the different policies we have to follow and stuff, we zigzag around. They're so direct. Yeah, so definitely, and it can speed things up as well, because they have the ideas. Like I said, the more like to promote it, word of mouth is a great promotion. And if they really enjoy themselves at your session or your provision, they're more likely to bring their friends next week. So it's a great way to get the word out and get more people involved. So yeah, they were excellent benefits. So thank you for that. So we've got a very small list as well. to be fair, you've covered a lot of it. So Emma's just going to share the screen. So some of the benefits we were thinking of and we've found in our practice have been around the improving confidence, self-esteem for staff members and young people. So yes, young people will improve their confidence by becoming, say, a young leader, but actually as a practitioner, we can improve our own confidence and feel like we're more in our ability as a worker. It can remove barriers. It's a new perspective, you know, new ideas, leads to better and more responsive services, which you've already spoke about in your group. It meets the requirements we have. So things about the Children's Act, getting young people's voices heard, the UN Convention of the Child, you know, all those sort of things we need to be working with actually helps us do that. It promotes the equality as well. So if done correctly and done fairly, it really does promote that. And young people know that they're active citizens in their society and have a right to have their voice heard. And it saves money, which, let's be honest, we all need to find ways to do that. So actually, rather than staff members spending hours planning something, giving it a go, it's not working, you know, ask the young people first what they actually want and what they need. And like you said, your group said, actually you'll meet the needs better for the young people, but actually you're not going around the houses to do that. You've done it the first time round. So thinking about ways we can involve young people, here's some of the meaningful ways we can do it, so some examples. So if you look at our little chart, the line go on the bottom, there's more opportunities and more young people get involved. So that's like your biggest stuff, more like numbers, bums on seats. But actually as the chart goes up, that looks at your increased influence on your organisation. Depends on what you're trying to achieve, depends where you might want to be on the chart. So the bottom row is around projects. So you may want to set up a peer education programme, mentoring, have young people as young trainers, facilitators, a youth theatre group, fundraisers, community service. So these sort of projects, you tend to have a large number of young people involved. So the increase, the influence on the organisation might be smaller, but you're getting a lot more young people involved and then more impactful of say, the local community. The next row is about your input and consultation. So things like youth forum, your advisory board, you've got your focus group surveys, valuations, young people using media, you know, consultations. So again, you may have less young people involved, but you start to get more of an influence on the organisation. And the very top row is about that shared leadership. So it's young people in leadership positions within your organisation. So they may be a voting member on your board, for example. They might be part of, you might have subgroups or committees on different themes, so hiring, programme or development. So you may have a committee on hiring. So young people are part of that process, so they're part of your hiring process. So you may only have 2 or 3 young people part of that, because in an interview, you don't want loads of people involved, but actually that's going to have a greater influence on your organisation because they're part of the recruitment of the young people. So it depends on what you're wanting to achieve, depends on where you are on this structure. So, and there's nothing wrong with either way. So you may want to do a peer education scheme and work with a lot of young people. That's still a great programme, you know, so there's nothing wrong with where you are on the system. So thinking about the feedback Heather made about the local and the regional. So some of this stuff is your local stuff. You might get your bigger numbers, potentially you might have a youth theatre group locally in a community and you get quite a lot of people attend. But across the region, it might work better to have an advisory group and have 1 young person per local authority in the northeast. So you have 12 young people involved. So yeah, that's a smaller number, but actually your scope, your reach is across the whole northeast. So yeah, think about what you want to achieve, and then that will help you think about what meaningful roles are out there for young people and then get them involved in that planning and development. So there's some things to think about when you're thinking about how to incorporate youth voice into your organisation. So I'm just going to hand you over now to Emma, who's going to start thinking about some models and methods that are out there that we could use.
Accidentally let slip what we were doing next because I pressed a button. Yeah, so we're just going to have a quick look at some, well, got a couple of little activities to do just to get you chatting and that. So I'm going to quickly, so this is just an example of sort of historical models. So there is more since 2010 that have been developed. There's things like, there's a few different ladders. So we are going to look at Harts ladder of participation at next. But there's things like there's wheels and there's like continuums, there's different like frameworks, things like that get used, and they've all sort of been developed, and there's some similarities, there's differences, but there's just like an example from like right back to 1969 right through to 2010, and as I said, there are more coming out as we go along. So yeah, so as I said, we are going to look at Harts ladder. So I don't know how familiar people are with Harts ladder, so what we're going to do is on the left hand side of your screens, it's got like a ladder, and there's like rung 1 through to 8. Rung 1 is like the bottom of it, was meant to be at the bottom. For some reason I've done it at the top, but that's like your lower level stuff, and then rung 8 is your higher level stuff. So based on that, have a look at the terms on the right hand side, and let me have it, just shout out what rung you think refers to your rung 1, and then I'll press a button and hope that it works. So feel free to just shout out which one you think is rung 1.
Like just having young people there, you know, you might get a few opinions from them, but you don't do anything with it. So, oh, wasn't meant to press that. Sorry, Burgess. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. It's the answer manipulation. So, like you were saying, Jess, they're there, but you're not really doing anything with them. So the next one is rung 2. So what are people's thoughts on rung 2?
Would that be tokenism? You're sort of doing it a bit, but you're not really taking it anywhere.
Anybody else? Accidentally give the answer away on the last one. So
it's either decoration or tokenism. They're both pretty low down, I'd say. Yeah. So decoration, kind of similar to manipulation, like you were saying. It's again, they're there, but what are we actually? What is that like? Have they got like a purpose for like what they're doing and stuff? So yeah, and Bev, as you were saying, like. Yeah, so tokenism. So these three kind of get sort of almost like kind of put together under one heading. So the idea, and you can see how they're very similar and overlap quite a bit in terms of their meaning and why they're there. So we're going to move on to the last part. So what are people's thoughts on rung 4 of the ladder?
Is it adult initiated and they've just shared their decisions with young people?
Any other thoughts on that? So this one is that they're assigned and informed. So they're given a bit more of a role within what they're doing, but it's still very low level stuff. So just kind of told what they're doing and why they're doing it rather than having that choice. So what are people's thoughts on rung 5? What do you think that might be?
Then the adult initiated shared decisions with young people.
Any other thoughts before I press the button?
Or young people consulted and informed. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right, Heather. So yeah, so that was it. They're given a bit more information before they take that next step. So rung 6, what are people's thoughts on that one? What do we think is rung 6?
Is that one the adult initiated? Shared decisions.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, can I just say I misread that. It sounds like it's adult initiated and the adults share the decision of the young people. So when I was reading that, I would have put that lower because I thought it was the adults are initiating and sharing decisions, but I think it doesn't mean adults initiate the consultation, but the young people sharing the decision making. Is that sort of,
yeah.
That's what I thought as well, Bev, that it was the adults doing all the work. Yeah.
What are people's thoughts then on rung 7 and 8?
So young people and adults share decision making, and then young people lead and initiate action.
Got a few nods there. I think my lines have gone a bit. So yeah, so that just kind of gives you a little bit of an overview, and then I'm just going to pull up this. So yeah, so as you can see, it's the other way up because we like to mix it up. So as you can see, like the bottom bit in the red, you've got manipulation, decoration, and tokenism. they're like in red, sort of the more everything's led by adults. Young people don't really have much of a say as such. There's very minimal input from them. Whereas the top half, young people are starting to have more of an influence on what's being said and what's being done. And as you build up, it's becoming more of an equal partnership between the two. And again, they can be like linked together. In all our work, we'd love to say that we're always at the top, but it depends on like what's happening, what's going on. You kind of can become influenced by your funding. So if you're doing a specific bit of funding around isolation and loneliness, quite a bit of your work might focus on that. So it's important to recognise that you may move between the rungs. So don't be afraid to feel that you might be at the bottom initially to start that process of engaging with young people and bringing young people in. But then as then relationships grow and they form and things like that, then you'll feel that you'll find yourself moving up and young people becoming more equal with you and more influenced in what the discussions are. So was that all right? Yes, Bev?
Just to kind of echo what you said about that sort of positioning, I was fortunate enough to hear Professor Lundy talk, and she was talking about tokenism, but saying that don't ignore that, to me, if that's what you're able to do, then and that's it, you should do that and be proud of the fact that you're on that ladder and you're moving forward, as opposed to going, if we can't hit the top rungs, we won't do it. So I think, just to share that. So I agree.
Thank you. So for the next bit, we're gonna look at some scenarios and get you thinking about where they might be on the ladder. So I'm gonna put the first one up for you. Can everyone see that? Because I've got it slightly hidden. So the first scenario is Gateshead Graffiti Gallery forms a street team to promote their exhibitions among young people. So based on Harts ladder, whereabouts do you think they would be? So we're looking more at the top end of this ladder. So we're looking at things around like young person initiated, the shared decisions with adults, the consulted and informed, the adult initiated shared decisions with people, assigned and informed, and things like that sort of top end of the rungs.
I think if Gateshead Graffiti Gallery is adults, because I don't know them, there might be young people. If they're an adult organisation and they're using the young people to market the exhibitions, then I think it's way down the bottom of the ladder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're assigned but informed. Thank you. So the next one is the National Arts Association wants to create a network of young artists and fund upstart projects to facilitate its development with existing members and new potential members via a series of collaboration workshops. So whereabouts on the ladder do you think that one might be? Again, it's still at the top end of the ladder.
I think that young people are creating it, so they're like sort of developing it with the existing members. So it's sort of a bit of a shared. It's still a little bit adult initiated, but they've got quite a lot of input into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah, like you were saying, Heather, it's adult initiated, the shared decisions with the young people. So this next one is York Basketball Association creates a new cheerleader training group and holds a series of consultation sessions to ask young members of local teams when, where, and how much the group should be and which are considered. So what are people's thoughts on that one?
Is that towards the sort of bottom of the higher end, like around, I can't remember what each one is called, maybe around 4 or 5?
Yeah.
Because they're only asking for when it's going to be where and how much. It's not about what's going to be in those sessions, but just when the young people would like it to happen.
Yeah, so yeah, consulted and informed. Thanks. The next one is, so the National Association of Youth Theatres Sector Development associates, and then it says a young professionals team suggest and work with the evaluation of evaluation staff to create a new framework of standards to hold youth theatres to. So what do we reckon that one will be?
That's quite high up because they're sort of, they're part of making the framework and contributing to the framework. So yeah, sort of sharing the development of it.
Yeah, so young person initiated, and it's the shared decisions with the adults. So yeah, like you were saying, Heather, young people are like more involved than some of the other examples. And then just the last one is Liverpool Arts Parallel Board sets up a new weekly lunchtime drawing group in the building cafe for unemployed teenagers. Whereabouts do we think that one might be?
Are there parallel board, a board of young people, or are there parallel, sorry, what does parallel board mean in that context? If it's young people, then it's a different thing than if it's
yes, so this would be young, this is young people have set this up.
Initiated by young people for young people, so it would feel like it's relatively high. I can't remember the categories.
Yeah, so young people initiated and directed.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. I think I'm passing back over to Megan.
Yeah, can you go to the next slide, please, so the following 10 examples are examples of participation values and principles, and I believe that they came from both young people and youth workers. So they have said that young people are involved because they want to be. They have a choice about how they get involved and at what level. The diversity of young people is valued. Participation is accessible to all young people. Everyone is honest and open about the process. There is equal partnership between adults and young people. They are encouraged to come up with their own ideas and solutions. Barriers are challenged. The value of young people's work, ideas, and skills is recognised, and young people's involvement makes a difference. And that is what they had come up with. Go to the next slide, please. In discussion, it was said that participation in which young people don't quite know why they are there, what the goals are, how it will work, and what will come afterwards is a recipe for disaster. In any participation process, the purpose, assumptions, limits, and ground rules need to be clear to all, and that is just a way to avoid fuzzy participation.
Muted myself. So yeah, so before we, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up just some feedback from some young people that we work with. So one of our projects that we're involved in through Youth Focus North East is called the North East Youth Alliance, and that's in partnership with Any Youth. And the idea of the alliance is there's like 3 different strands. So there's the workforce development. So this workshop, for example, is one of our things that we offer through that. So that's given out to practitioners and other organisations to offer that shared learning and then upskilling. Another one is through local alliances. That's more our on the ground stuff. So a bit of a mix of working with organisations and helping them with their strategic stuff, but also around young people's involvement. How are they making sure they're involved, making sure they're having their voices heard, and getting that working through things through like Harts ladder and that. And the final bit is around youth voice, which is like my main role and part of Laura's role. So it's this, in the last 6 months, we've set up a youth board, and we've currently got 5 young people involved in that represented from across the region. So what we did at the other weekend is we had a Zoom session with them just to touch base, see how they're doing, let them know about the things that are coming up and how they can get involved in that. But we also asked them what youth voice meant to them. So why is it important and things like that. And this is what they said. So it said, so one young person said, it means I could have my voice heard and help others make a positive change in my area. Another said, it's a way for young people to talk about issues and anything they find important and actually be listened to and heard. Another was, I get to meet more people and learn more about them, and also allows me to give my opinion to others. And the last one was, helps young people understand difficulties they may face, letting people know our concerns about our local area. What was really nice that thing that for us as workers with this group was just seeing that journey over that short space of time. If we'd asked them 6 months ago what youth voice was, they would have, one or two of them would have probably been a bit like, Emma, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know what you mean. And they'd have probably been like, well, I'll just get my voice heard. Whereas now they're coming out with things like this, where they're saying, I can have that positive change on my area. I feel that I'm getting listened to, I'm getting heard. I can share my opinions. One young person who won't mind us talking about them is very open about their disability, so they are blind, has had a massive impact on us as an organisation in a sense of just certain things that we hadn't thought of, things like our paperwork, making sure that's accessible to a young person who has a visual impairment. It took a lot of backwards and forwards over a couple of months, and our admin team coming to a session and the young people being like, it doesn't work like that. So now some of our paperwork now is actually moved on to Google Forms, and it's given them like the opportunity to actually be able to do it themselves rather than relying on either one of us to fill it in or like them having someone else do it for them. So yeah, so there's that, and they're really keen to make sure like other young people can experience things from their point of view. So something else that we're doing, which I will bring up on the screen, is, and the young people are involved in this in some of the planning. So we're doing some road shows across the region. So they're across the region. So there's the May half term, so the first 3 days of May half term. So we've got Monday the 30th, we've got an event on in Northumberland, and then Tuesday the 31st we've actually got two. So we've got one in Gateshead and one in Durham, and the last one is on Wednesday the 1st of June, and that's in Middlesbrough. I'll just bring up the poster just so you can see it, just as a quick, like, you can see what we're doing. So the idea of the road shows is to bring young people like aged 11 to 25 together to sort of like influence and shape the youth strategy. So rather than us going in and being like, this is the youth strategy, this is what we think is important to young people, then young people are going to come, we're inviting young people to these sessions. They're going to share with us what's life like living in the region. So them telling us, so looking at the good, looking at the bad, and trying to work together to like make that change. So making them bad things, improving them so they become good. So if they're saying, well, transport's rubbish, I can't get to my local youth club without relying on a bus, or like relying on two buses, or for example, what can we do to help improve them? And also, is that the last bus is 8 o'clock, but youth club doesn't finish till 9, like what can we do about things like that? So there's going to be sort of an element of them working together through stuff to like talk about that sort of more of the thinking side of it. There's going to be free food, and then on the afternoon there is some more interactive workshops. Depending on which one, depends on what there is. So I think there's sort of like, I know for example at Middlesbrough we've actually got blind football booked, so young people get to go up by like doing blind football. We're looking at getting graffiti artists in, we're looking at musicians, other craft, like just trying to get a bit of a range from across them. So if any young people you know might want to get involved in that, there's that coming up. The young people are involved in some of that, well, all of it to be fair. They've told us what they do and don't like about our ideas. And then from that, the idea is young people have something to sign up to if they're interested, if they want to get involved in something else. There's like going to be some like different roles, and we're working with the young people around what they're called, because some of them are just quite wordy and that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the barriers wall that we did at the beginning and have a bit of a chat about them, and just see how yous are feeling now we've had this session, like, and where you feel, if you feel like some of them have been chatted about, if there's anything we're missing, and things like that. So, sorry, Bev.
This is a question for any of you. I'm not aware of the organisations that you mentioned earlier, or what the differences in your roles are. And if this question is too long, then you can ignore it and just signpost me to something. But the difference between you guys and North East Youth Alliance and North East Youth, in terms of your kind of purpose, could you explain those 3 organisations and how they sit side by side?
Yeah, I don't mind doing that. So So, and Jess, jump in about any youth when you feel that you need to. So any youth or a regional youth organisation, Youth Focus North East is also a regional youth organisation. So any youth have like a membership. So they have organisations locally who sign up to any youth to be like formal members. Youth Focus North East isn't the formal membership route. We're infrastructure support. So what we do is we support organisations. So we do training, we can help people set up as charities, we promote good practice. So Youth Focus and any youth have very similar values and very similar principles based on the values of youth work. And historically, we've always just done things separately. But what we've realised actually over the past few years is we know competition is really high, we know funding is a lot less, and we both kind of work quite similar. So we thought, why don't we do something together to really support the North East sector? Because we're having the same conversations with funders, the same conversations internally about nobody bringing all the organisations together enough. And it's hard when it's just one organisation, we don't have the resources. So the two organisations went to Big Lottery to ask for some funding for 5 years to create the North East Youth Alliance. So it's a project we both deliver on, but what we're trying to do is neither organisation owns it, we're trying to gift it to the sector. So that's why we don't always put our organisation names attached to it, because we're trying to, anybody can be part of the North East Youth Alliance, and we want to work with many people as possible. So the idea is that it's 5 years, we're 2 years in already, and the way it was written was Youth Voice was going to be that golden thread throughout the whole programme, because it's really important to both organisations. So we have, across both organisations, we have a team of part of the Youth Voice. So Emma sits on it, Holly, any youth sits on it, and we work very closely together to deliver Youth Voice across the North East and to link with as many organisations as possible. Jess, have I missed anything from your point?
I don't think so. Just one thing. So any youth have just had a whole restructure, whereas our membership, which is anybody who works with young people, it was originally any youth who have been giving the training, whereas now it's going to be the North East Youth Alliance that's going to handle all of that workforce development. But that's, other than that, that's probably the only other thing, the biggest change. Yeah.
Thanks, Jess. Does that make sense? Does that help, Bev?
Yeah, fantastic. I got that. One other thing then, and your relationship with Children North East, is there a relationship there as well?
Yeah. So we work with Zoan, like I know quite a few staff members like Luke and all them. So yeah, so what we do is we link up with them quite a lot. So they, for example, done consultation and activities with young people at the youth board. They're going to come to our road shows. We have regular chats with them, go over for pre-COVID was a lot easier, going over for a cuppa to see people. So it's a little bit challenging keeping those connections. But yeah, we do regularly, different people across the different organisations chat with different people. So yeah, we do try and keep that connection as much as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We've covered a lot of information, that's all I'm just conscious of. Okay, we'll do what Emma said. We'll go to our back to our barriers wall, and then anything you might want to talk about the barriers, because what we'd like you to do is take this forward if you want to. So I said at the beginning, you will get a resource pack that kind of goes more detail about the different models, things like that, because we only have a short period of time. And it's hard on Zoom to kind of get all that stuff across. So you will get a resource pack afterwards. But let's look at your barriers that you all suggested. And is there anything you'd like to explore as a group around how we might remove those barriers?
I'd be interested, like, for example, like the workshops that you're going to be doing, like how are you reaching out to make sure that you're getting a range of young people to your sessions, sort of trying to reduce those barriers? What are you doing, like, practically?
Yeah, I don't mind answering that one, Laura. So for anything that we do, it goes out through various different platforms. Mm-hmm. So it's either through emails to partner organisations, it'll go out in the different bulletins, it'll go out on social media. If there's events coming up, so like for instance, there was the Durham Youth Conference Network Conference last week. We went to that and we spoke to partners. We are quite open about invite ourselves to sessions. So if people have got sessions going on and they want us to attend and let young people know about what's going on, we will quite happily attend them sessions. I've been to a couple just recently. I went to one in Hartlepool a couple of weeks back, and then last week I was actually at Denton, not Denton. No, it was Denton, Gateshead. Is Denton in Gateshead? I've got really bad geography. So anyway, so I went and met a group with them during the day. So that's just a couple of examples of like what we do. And like with these roadshows, it's not just the young people that we work with through either any youth or Youth Focus North East. It's about other young people, because what is impacting young people and the issues that are impacting young people vary and are different, and we don't want to miss them. So we've been doing mass mail out, but rather than doing that blind carbon copy thing, trying to do that more personalized thing of, hi, we're so and so, like we're working with people, like we'd love for your young people to feel that they can come along, have their voice heard, things like that, and also about that what we offer through that. So does that answer your question, Heather?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's helpful.
Thank you.
I think we've also done, we've had young people design the posters for us, because what I think might look nice is never right, to be honest. So the young people do help, if they're quite, sometimes they're very creative, they'll design themselves. Sometimes they'll sit with our admin team who go on Canva and they then talk about the different colours, different styles, things like that, just so we know that it's attractive to young people, because what I think might be attractive doesn't mean it necessarily will be. So even though I think those sort of things, we also, as youth workers, go out and do detached. So that's just walking around the community where young people are, fully branded and logoed up, ID badges, all the rest of it, just to chat with them, because sometimes young people might be in the park and may not access school. So then how would they get the information about what we do? So we go and chat with them. And we also do link with schools, as much as that can be a challenge. There are some local schools we have got really good relationships with, who will, and we just sometimes leaflet drop when they finish school. So we'll chat to them. So we get permission from the school first, say, can we come along this time, this date? And generally they're really welcoming to say, yeah, come along and advertise what you're doing, or attend assemblies, things like that. So it is hard getting into schools once you're in them, and they can see the value of what you're promoting and offering. They are really welcoming.
I know I've just took the thing off the screen. I can put it back up if people would prefer. Was there anything else from that? I know there was things around transport and stuff. Was there anything else anyone wanted to discuss? Or do you want me to put it back up on the screen? We're kind of coming to an end, but what we'll do before we do totally close is let's just do a bit of what are you already doing with young people? Like, how are you involving young people in what you work, and what do you feel? Yeah.
I don't mind starting. We're right at the beginning, so like in terms of coordinating the Tees Valley Creative Education Partnership, so really want to get youth voice involved, like right at the beginning of our sort of journey. So I guess this has been really helpful to sort of think about the different ways we could do that, and yeah, and sort of just from that region-wide perspective. And there's been some really good insights from colleagues on this call, like how to be able to do that. Yeah. So keen to sort of hear, like, it's good, like how you work with schools and sort of and sort of at the moment we're sort of just trying to engage with teachers, and sort of the next step is sort of then looking at how we engage with young people, and ultimately to inform, a bit like what you're doing with your sort of roadshow, like ultimately to inform like a creative education strategy for Tees Valley, sort of a long-term view. So we really want young people to really feed into that and really shape it. So that's our sort of plans at the moment. And so this is sort of the beginning of that journey. So it's been good to hear how that's been, what people are doing.
Bev, you've got your hand up.
As a kind of generic starting point, we always we work to Arts Council's quality principles, so looking at those and planning and all of our kind of planning around that. Sometimes our barrier is that we work with schools and then with young people, so it's harder to get young people shaping our programs when we're working through a teacher, but we're working on that. But examples that I would give is we've worked with Durham Works, working with NEETs recently, and we kind of began with a program that was sketched out for them, and then it was tweaked, and they sort of took it on a different journey. They were very bespoke programs working one-to-one with an artist, so they were like an amazing opportunity for us to be able to create a program specifically for a young person, so that they could choose the direction of the learning, and that was probably our best example of kind of youth consultation, and really them taking such a major role. And we are in the process of developing more programs where we're taking all of the feedback from the young people we worked with on that first round to get a better starting point for the next lot. And then obviously it will be the same process again of consultation.
Yeah, so I'm the school program coordinator for Any Youth, and kind of my first steps, because it was a brand new role to the organisation as well, and my first steps was kind of mapping and research to find out what's already happening in schools, what's missing in schools, and then the next steps was that whole consultation phase of it as well. So we did some consultation with teachers and school staff members. We did a consultation within our membership, and we did consultation with young people as well, not just within school but within Any Youth's youth groups as well. We've recently done at Wickham School a school-wide consultation, so we were there for 3 days doing an audit with their young people, like from each age year group, to find out what they want to see in their school. And actually that's really informed all of the work that we're now producing for schools. So that's kind of how we've tackled it, and how we're going to move forward. And actually everything that has been produced, we've not just plucked it out of thin air, it has been from all of our findings. So
Anyone else? If not, I'm going to hand back over to Laura.
Yeah, I mean, we're right at the start of our journey as well. I mean, I work for the Record Office in Durham, but we're in the process of building a new history centre, which will be opening in Durham in 2023. And basically looking at ways to build youth voice in and engage with young people as meaningfully as possible, sort of from the beginning, as we start to look at our schools program and a community's engagement and things like that, and sort of thinking about that from the beginning, which is quite daunting and quite exciting at the same time. So I mean, but yeah, that's basically where we are at the moment. We haven't done a lot of youth engagement in the past, but seeing those opportunities that are coming, we want to kind of make the most of them.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for sharing. I'm going to pass back over to Laura.
Thank you everybody for sharing. And the youth voice is a journey, so don't be thinking I've just started. The fact that you want to start and you want to get your people's voices is a big step. So don't be thinking, oh God, the different models, you've got to be at this top rung. Oh, how am I going to do that? Don't think about that. You've done the first step, and that's brilliant. A lot of organisations don't even want to take that first step. They do want to do that tick box. The fact that you're all here today and you've all been very honest and open about you're on this journey. And me and Emma have been doing this a while, but we're still learning. So we've just set up our Regional Youth Board, but actually we learned a lot from those young people, and I would probably do it differently next time. So as long as you have that reflection and want to learn, it's like a cycle, to be fair. So please don't let it put it off that you've got to be the top of that ladder, because it takes a long time to get there, and it takes a lot of time to keep that top. That, like you were saying, Dawn, you really want to get people involved. Yes, it's a bit nervous, but actually it's really exciting. It's the best way to start. It really is. So thank you very much for sharing, all being very open and honest with us. So we're going to do an evaluation with yourselves, and then I'm going to hand over to Susie to close our workshop today. So what we're going to do is let you think about one thing that you would change about this morning's workshop so we can learn as practitioners, and one thing that you've learned or might learn and will use in the future. So one thing you would change and one thing that we'd learn will use. And Emma's going to do the Mentimeter for me, because I'm rubbish at that, to be honest. We'll start a new page.
It's just on the same Menti that you were on earlier, so just back on menti.com.
Yeah, so the second page of evaluation.
Yeah, and the code's 66412599. I think it's just been popped in the chat as well for you.
Yeah, it's in the chat as well. So think about something that you might have changed for today, so for part of our reflection learning, and also something that you've learned, or you might take away and use at a later date. I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then we'll have a little look. Okay, has everyone finished typing? It's hard to tell online. All right, Al.
Yeah.
Okay, dokie. So having the workshop in person, yeah, people said that. Yeah, completely agree. It is quite challenging on Zoom, especially have those sort of conversation really unpick this topic. So yeah, in person is always better. You direct from young people, yeah, that's a really good suggestion. What we've done, we do a vision impairment training with young people to raise awareness of being more inclusive. And we had a young person do videos for us because of like school commitments. They used to co-present with us and they just couldn't make it, unfortunately. So he actually did some videos that we use part of the training. So rather than me and Emma explaining something, we get video and the young person explains. So like things they use to make their life more accessible. So it's more powerful than anything I can say. So yeah, that's a great idea. So I think we should think about it, incorporate it definitely. Case studies, yeah. I think what different people are doing. Break it, yeah, stretch the legs, yeah. If I feel less daunted to start, remind me that about the journey and the approach you can use, so that I learn, yeah. So it is quite daunting when people come in. And Mel introduces specialists. We're certainly not specialists at all. It was very, very kind of her, but yeah, it can feel very daunting. So hopefully you've gone away with some tools and some ideas. It'd be great to explore practical examples we put into practice quickly. Yeah, so hopefully you've got some tools, some ideas, some light bulb moments from this morning to be able to take that forward. And just so this is the beginning of your journey to be able to explore that. Brilliant. Thank you all for your honesty. It's really interesting. Thank you very much. So we have actually finished now. So I'm going to hand over to Susie to close the session.
Thanks, Laura. So on behalf of Culture Bridge North East, I'd like to say a big thank you to all our speakers this morning and for a fantastic workshop that certainly got us sort of getting the ball rolling, thinking about all these ideas. This is just a reminder that this session's been recorded, so it's available to watch on the Culture Bridge YouTube channel over the next couple of weeks. So the links from that will be on our website, and we'll also send it out to you all as well. So our website is the best place to go to find all the links to any other CPD courses coming up as well. Our next Secret World of Schools session is going to be focused on virtual schools, and that will be taking place in the autumn term. You can also have a look at our new Youth Voice section of the website, which is called No Filter, and it'll have a lot of great case studies from across the region and lots of information about effective youth voice work that we've been gathering over the last couple of months. So finally, can I ask you please to fill out the feedback form you'll have received from us today. It should be in your inbox. Your feedback's really important to us so that we can develop our CPD for the cultural sector over the coming year. So if there's anything that you particularly would like us to focus on, please do flag it with us so that we can shape our CPD so it's exactly what you need over the coming months. So thank you again for coming along, and we hope to see you again at one of our upcoming events. Thank you very much.